So good morning. Hey, when we got here 7 years ago, here's what we prayed. We had one guy. We had one guy in mind, and he didn't have like features, but here was what he was. We said, God, send us this guy. Send us the guy that's right outside the door of a church. A guy that, that's going through life, that is, pursuing solutions, working through life. Maybe he's a contributor. Maybe he's a good guy. Maybe he's not even anti-God, but that hasn't found a home in church, a community, independent people. There's more coming on the details, but I personally connect to independent people. It was like the word that described my childhood. I mean, everybody that I knew growing up, that was the word, was independent. And so when we got here, we said, God, send us those people that just get claustrophobic, those people that they're good-hearted, but they just, yeah. And he did. And you guys know him, and you guys know people. Maybe you're one of those people. This church has had a tremendous impact on people who would say, I didn't feel at home anywhere else. Wives praying for husbands, husbands praying for wives, parents praying for young people. You know what we hear all the time? I think people mean it as a compliment. But they're like, we only go there because our kids make us go there. All right. So what we have been praying about again, because it's like I said, we're in this phase of it's the building itself is built, the concept is built. If you wanted to see what church could be, look around, look at yourself. You go outside, you see the video, you see what it could be. But here's what we've been praying is that God show us that guy that's a little further out. Not the guy that's just right outside the door. Show us the guy that's a million miles from the door. Show us the guy that is so lost. Because we always thought of you walk in the door of the church. You walk in the door of the church and we'll start. How many of you guys know people that walking into the door of a church would be like step 17? That is, we're kind of picking our view up a little bit and going, wait a minute. Maybe there's people that maybe walking in the doors, that's a big commitment, but maybe they could watch a video. Maybe it would be that they could find a home online in their own home. Maybe they could watch a video. And for them, listen to this. Watching a sermon online would be a big step for them. Maybe they've never stopped to consider what God would like to do in their lives. And that if you can make it as non-intrusive as possible, we want to make it available. So then all of a sudden, now this concept, God's just been all of us. Everybody that's on staff, everybody that's in leadership, we just sort of had this feeling, this God's just been pestering us with it, of what would it look like to build a place online where people could feel at home. Not watching a video, but interacting. I think there are times that people would type a prayer request before they'd ever ask for one in person. I think there's some opportunities that we've got for developing a space where people can feel at home without ever making the commitment of walking in the door to begin with. The hope would be they walk in, sure, that would be great. But how many of you guys have people that say this, man, I would go to that church if I lived there? See, now all of a sudden we've got boundaries that are starting to expand. We go, wait a minute. Well, we don't have the Powell Butte campus, but we do have our online campus. And we do think that that's a great option if you're out of town. That's why we would say, if you're traveling and you can't be here, be a part of that campus. If you can't be a part of this campus, be a part of that campus. And here's what finally clicked. When I was a teenager, we used to wait. It didn't matter how hungry we would not eat. If we were broke, we would not eat until 9:25. And the reason it was 9:25 is because Chicken Express closed at 9:30. Now, if you haven't connected the dots, here's what you need to know about Chicken Express. First of all, best chicken ever. Don't listen to my wife. She wasn't a teenager. They weren't there for her in her weak years. They were there for me, and so I'm going to defend them. 9:25, and you pull in through the drive-thru, and you go, what do you got left? Yeah, you know why? Because they don't save food for the next day. They're just take it. And so just armloads of food, and you buy a roll, and you get boxes of chicken. And it's we're going to be closed. We're going to be closed. There's no sense this going to waste. Take all you want. I don't care if I live to be 100. Chicken Express will always have just this. As much as I love Whataburger, it never gave me free food. Because it never closes, but that's the point. If we can take what we're doing right here and say, listen, if you can't make it on a Sunday morning, that's fine. We'll box it up and send it to you. Take all you can. If you're sitting there at midnight and you're battling with something and you can't sleep and there's something going on in your life, we think you will like just checking out what God's doing here because we think that you're going to like it because we've seen God do some cool things here. Maybe it'll work for you too. Box it up. Take it with you. Take it wherever you're at. Gives you guys the opportunity to share it with people because there in the beginning we used to hear people, oh, I have a friend that needed to hear that. Great. Send it to them. So here's where we're going to start. I'm going to read you Joshua chapter 5, verse 13. I'll read it to you, and then I'll explain to you what we're hearing. Joshua chapter 5, verse 13 says, now when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and asked, are you for us or are you for our enemies? I'm going to pray real quick, and here's what I'm going to ask God to do, and here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask that by the time this is over, the idea is clear. The details, we'll do the best we can, but that the idea of what God wants to share with you, here's the thing. You can leave different today. We had a service a minute ago, and I'm telling you, what God is doing through this concept is real, and I pray that you're able to take it home and put it into practice. Let me pray. Lord, put this in a way that we can understand. God, break this down into a small enough bite, into a small enough step that we feel confident that even we could begin the process. God, put this into a way that's digestible, that your word be heard and seen and known. I pray in Jesus' name, amen. So Joshua was a brand new leader. If you remember the history of the Old Testament, how many of you guys remember, Moses and Pharaoh and the issues that were going on there? Let my people go, and they go out into the desert. Everybody's familiar with this. Well, what happened was they get to the promised land because remember, they left the desert, they're headed to the promised land. They get to the promised land, and there are giants, and there are issues, and there are enemies, and everybody kind of panics, and they go, oh, we can't do it. So the problems that were there were so big. Problems is a word you're going to hear a lot this morning. The problems were so big that an entire generation died in the desert because they were unwilling to face the problems in the promised land, okay? So they die in the desert. Now Joshua takes over for Moses. Joshua is a new leader walking into a land that was so scary that an entire generation had died rather than entering it. They were facing an enemy. They could see Jericho, their very first enemy. They'd never been in a fight, which is weird because the kids that I know growing up that had never been in a fight, always the most confident. So here's Joshua. He's a leader, and I know that you've been in issues like this. You've had problems like this. That there's a stress load. You're carrying a certain amount of stress, and people are going to be affected. The older you get, it seems like the more people fall under your umbrella, people that you're responsible for, people looking to you to have the answers so that they're okay. And man, that can be a stressful position, but Joshua, he's facing a lot of new issues. Listen to this. In fact, their issues got bigger once they got into the promised land. Let me read you this. Right before Joshua confronted the man with the sword, here's what had happened. We're going to start to get a picture of Joshua's mental condition at this point. Verse 10 of that same chapter, Joshua 5, says, on the evening of the 14th day of the month, while camped at Gilgal on the plains of Jericho, the Israelites celebrated the Passover. The day after the Passover, that very day, they ate some of the produce of the land, unleavened bread and roasted grain. This is great. It's going good. We're here. We got food. It all changes right here. The manna stopped that day. After they ate this food from the land, there was no longer any manna for the Israelites, but that year they ate the produce of Canaan. Think of this. Think that your dad, when you were hungry, your dad would take you down there as a little boy, and a little girl, little boy, child, whatever. He would take you down the river and he goes, this is how we catch fish. So if you're hungry, here's how you catch fish. And you take the fish out and get them all ready, eat dinner. And this is how we eat. Oh, this is cool, Dad, thanks. And then pretty soon, you're doing it. And then you teach your kids how to do it. And one day God says, hey, no more fish. And that has been the only food source you've had for as long as you've been alive. Remember when you were a kid? Parents, this is always going to be funnier than to young people. Sorry, young people. When your parents, young people, one day say, no more allowance. And if you're like me, you're going, allowance, what's that? Whatever the case may be, that one day your parents withdraw something that they've been giving you, and you feel robbed. You felt entitled to it, but you're also aware of the fact that you had no control over it. And there's just this, yeah. Typical response. I'm moving out. I'll show you. Don't you think that was the temptation of the Israelites? Like, no more manna. What? But then also the reality of we never were in charge of that. So you want to review real quick. Here's what Joshua, the leader, is dealing with. No more manna. They're in a new land. They can see the walls of Jericho. They're boarded up. They have a very real enemy. Oh, and they've never been in a fight. Which one of these do you think woke Joshua up at night first? You ever been there? You ever been in a place in your life, you're about to fall asleep, and you remember that bill that you got coming due? Your phone rings and you don't answer it because you know who's calling. We're just going to tell you we're about to shut your phone off. We're going to extend the credit on your debit card. What about emails at work? You ever get an email of somebody that's just super upset and you wake up at night thinking of what you should have said? Problems have this funny way. They wait. They sneak attack you at night. They're like right before you fall. So I'm wondering, Joshua, which problem do you think woke him up right before he went to the food, the manna? Because listen, there's no manna and he doesn't have a button. It wasn't like God gave Joshua a manna button and said, just in case, no more. Don't you think that he woke up in the middle of the night going, what if we run out of produce? What if the farming doesn't work? What if Jericho? What about the walls? Because the walls were pretty fortified. They weren't getting in. So don't you think that the walls of Jericho, about the time he'd fall asleep, the walls of Jericho would come to mind and he'd wake right back up? Why? Because he's the leader. There's a lot at stake. What about the rent? What about maybe college? What about the doctor's appointment, what the doctor just told him? What about the elections? I'm not talking about Joshua anymore, if you guys aren't keeping up. What about the future? What about the past? When life is coming at you fast, there develops what is called the tyranny of urgency. And what that means is this, is that you are so preoccupied with just reacting to what life is bringing at you, you don't have an opportunity to slow down and start organizing. You're literally just trying to keep your head above water. Anybody else? Does it ever seem like when people get mad at you, everybody gets mad at you all at the same time? I don't know what's happening. I'm 35. I'll be 36 this week. And I used to not care if people got mad at me. And the older I get, it bugs me. And it seems like when one person gets upset, unrelated, somebody else tends to get upset. And then pretty soon it starts to rob me of my peace. I don't like it. And then all of a sudden it's all I'm thinking about. I saw a deal on Instagram this week that said 90% of my time spent in the shower is winning an argument that I never actually had. So here's Joshua, and he is just dealing with the tyranny of urgency, whatever's the most urgent. Don't you know that his peace could not have possibly been stable? He was not at a place, and peace is a huge thing. We say the word peace, but we don't understand what that means. There was so much at stake here, but here's how it works, is that when something happens in your life and your peace becomes destabilized, you instantly tend, by nature, to drop everything else, and you seek to restabilize peace. Something that says, I know there's a problem, but I got a plan. I know there's a problem, but I got a plan. And you can't sleep until you have, but I have a plan. When there's a problem without a plan, there is stress and there is a loss of peace. And here's what's crazy. Here's what's interesting to me. Be ready for this. Because addiction, this is where addiction gets its foot in the door. Because between the problem and the solution, sometimes people have been battling with a problem for so long, they just want to feel better for a little bit. Really, all they want is a little break from the stress, a little break from the pain. And this is where addiction comes in and says, hey, I can't fix your problem, but I'll just make it hurt a little less for a little while. It's not what the sermon's about, but just something to consider, because what we're going to talk about is the problem and the solution relationship. I think this, and I think you would agree. If life went in a cycle of problem, solution, I think we would be okay. I think that would be okay. I think in the reaction period between problem and solution, we would be okay. If, and only if, that would work. If we as people could always accurately identify our problems. What does that mean? Let me explain it to you. As people, we battle to identify what is the actual problem. So many times we are desperately trying to solve a result. The tyranny of urgency, life is coming at us so fast that we're not addressing the actual problem because we're reacting to the results of that problem. This week I got home and Lacey says, hey, I don't know what happened. The kennel's broke. The dogs are out. I put them in the trailer. And part of the reason she put him in the trailer is because she claims my dogs don't listen to her. I say she's using the wrong tone. It's a thing. The kennel's broken. The dogs are in the trailer. I didn't even go out there to deal with it. Go. Got it. So what happened is I walked out there not knowing what I was getting into other than this. The dogs are no longer able to be contained by the kennel. That is not the identification of the problem. The dogs being out were the what? The result. You guys are smart. The dogs being out were a result of the problem. The dogs being out were not the problem. When I got out there, what I saw, and it just fortunately for me, it was there's a little place where they could get a hold of a piece of hay string and they could pull on it hard enough that the little gap developed between the kennel and the wall and they could get out. So what did I just identify? I identified once I had identified the problem, then all of a sudden the solution was easy. See how this works? Life is not a stressful place if you can accurately identify the problem. But the issue is this, is that so many times we battle with what is the actual problem. And because we don't have time to deal with the actual problem, we just constantly deal with the results. Let me give you an example. Cows are getting out, but we don't know where. The cows being out is the result. So if we go grab the cows and we get them all and we put them back in the pasture without solving the problem, guess what the cows are going to do? You know cows get out way faster the second time? It's a true story. It's a true story. I had a friend that used to catch pigs off this guy's ranch. This guy would pay him, and I'm not saying he was a good guy. Just a guy I knew, okay? Don't judge me, his issue. He would catch the pigs. He would drive up to the rancher's place. The rancher would see all the pigs in his trailer, and he'd pay him. And he'd drive around to the back of that same property to the neighbor's place, let the pigs out, and he would catch the same pigs over and over again. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. Problems are almost always disguised by the results. You know people like this. You'll be frustrated with them. Have you ever known somebody, you can love them deeply, deeply, deeply love people who are consistently making the same mistake over and over and over again. And the problem is they haven't identified the problem. They're just always dealing with the results. What about this? What about this? We're not going to point fingers. We're not going to call names. But what about your friend that's always dating the wrong person? And like you don't want to burst their bubble, but you know. And they're like, I think I met the one. You're like, you mean another one? Another the one? Saw a picture this week. Some people that we know, they just finished building their house and they put a picture on social media. The first thing I notice is it's flooded. And their house is in like the lowest part of the property, and they just finished that. And I don't want to be ugly. Listen, I don't want to be ugly, but it hurts. It hurts me to have friends who can't see problems coming. And it hurts you when you have friends because you love them and you want to see them get it right. But man, after a while, you're like, I got to get off of your crazy train. What about this one? I'm so upset with my work. My job, my boss, he just doesn't get me. And you're like, that's so crazy. You keep finding these jobs. It just doesn't like statistically, that seems like an impossibility. Another girl broke your heart. Some people just don't have good luck. I added this one just because I'm petty. What about this? I'm mad at another pastor. No, never mind. Take that one off. That was stupid. And the solution it escapes them. It escapes them because they're dealing with results and they haven't yet learned to identify a problem. And so the solution becomes, it'll be different next time. I got new cows. They'll probably stay in. What about this? What about if I'd have gone out there and I would have said, it's probably the gate on the dog kennel. I'm just going to put a new gate on. How many gates would I have gone through? Well, that's a hard question to answer because the infinity. How dumb would I have looked putting a new gate on a kennel that has a hole? You see, my solution doesn't make sense if I don't understand the problem. And if I don't understand the problem, I will go through the same solution with the same results over and over and over and over again. Until eventually everybody who sees the hole in the dog kennel goes, we're going to go to dinner. We sure love you, but we can't. It's too much. If you can't predict a problem, you cannot avoid a problem. My grandpa used to say most people never have a good horse in their life because they don't know what a good horse looks like. Same with problems. Most people fall into problems because they don't know what problems look like. There's a form of therapy. I was listening to a podcast last week, and it's such an interesting thought because admittedly, when I said there was an issue with the dog kennel, but then I told you, I went out there and I found the problem. Didn't that feel good, kind of? Like, whether you recognize it or not, there's a little part of your wiring that went, oh, it feels good to identify a problem and fix it. And it worked. There's a form of therapy, and it's called problem-solving therapy, and it's not what it sounds, because I would think problem-solving therapy was problem-solving, and it's therapeutic. Nope. It is dedicated to identifying a problem and stating it clearly. That you go into therapy, and the therapist says, I'm going to walk you through a problem, and then you're going to walk through what the problem actually is and how to solve it. And there is something calming about identifying a problem that's universal to all of us. There's something about that process that feels good to all of us. Do you know that one of the root causes of depression is an inability to clearly identify a problem? And think of it this way. How stressful was the kennel situation to Lacey? Because she hadn't gone out there and looked yet. I can identify how she felt exactly like this. Every time something mechanical breaks. Truck broke. It's broken. This drives mechanics crazy. And if you're a mechanic, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to think less of me today. It's gotten a little better over the years, but I wouldn't say it's good yet. Your truck's broke down? Yeah. What's wrong with it? It's not working. It's broke. Imagine if before I identified what was wrong, I started to think up solutions. I'm going to change the tires. I mean, couldn't hurt. We'll see. That won't work. Have you changed the tires? Then you don't know. You see the relationship between problems and solutions, how vital identifying a problem becomes to the process of. So imagine Joshua, and here's Joshua, and he's like, we're in a new place, there's no manna, there's an enemy, we've never been in a fight. Imagine the stress. Imagine right as he falls asleep, because his stabilization of peace was all over the place. And the problem was you could not think of a solution. What's the solution? Joshua, what are we going to do? I got a plan. Check back with me tomorrow. I'm busy today. So it makes sense to me. I'm going to read this story again, and his state of mind makes so much more sense to me. Joshua chapter 5:13. Now, when Joshua was near Jericho, he looked up and saw a man standing in front of him with a drawn sword in his hand. Joshua went up to him and said, just kill me. Of course there's another problem. See, I always thought of this story as Joshua walked up and was like, are you for us or against us? Heroic. That's how it's always been told to me. I honestly think he was like, of course there's another. What? Now what? You with us? Are you against us? Are you another problem? What? Are you coming to tell me you got a solution? Don't you almost catch just a little hint of sarcasm in his voice? Joshua, we got Jericho. Yeah. We got manna. Yep. He looks up. There's a guy with a sword drawn. He's like, kill me. I don't care. I'm so done. I am so done with this. Anybody else want to be leader? Maybe he was hoping to die. You ever been in that place with God? Let me tell you this. I have been. Where you're praying, God, do I take this job or not? You've been there. If you live for God any amount of time, you've been there. We're like, God, is it yes or is it no? I'm going to flip a coin. Am I in the right relationship? Yes or no? Do I spend this? Do I not spend this? Yes or no? There's a frustration of like, God, is it yes? Is it no? Is it right? Is it left? Is it up? Is it down? Is it go? Is it stop? Just give me an answer. If you live for God any amount of time, you've asked this question. That's exactly what Joshua said. You for us or against us? Verse 14, here's the word. My new favorite word in the Bible for this week. It'll probably change. But for this week, here's my favorite word in the Bible. The answer came, he replied, neither. That's not an option. Yes or no. Imagine, God, do I take this job or not? And God says, neither. I don't have a category for that. What? Okay, Jericho is the problem. The promised land, manna, it's all a problem. What I don't have is the solution. So I'm going to ask you again. Are you for us? Are you against us? What about this one? Here's a perfect demonstration. If someone were to say, I don't have enough money, that's a problem. So the solution would be, I need more money. You with me? See how easy this is? I don't have enough money. That's an easy one. I need more money. What about this one? I'm always attracting the wrong girl, the wrong guy. Just always attracting the wrong person. Anybody ever felt this way? I've just always got the wrong guy or the wrong girl. So what's the solution? Well, it's just easy. I need a new one. Law of statistics, I'm eventually going to come get the right one, right? Problem, solution. What about this? I hate my job. I hate my boss. I hate my boss. This is like the international cry of, seems like modern America. I hate my job. So I hate my job. What do I need? A new job. See, I'm gonna bring everything to a screeching halt real quick, and I'm gonna do two things. Because up until this point, the stage is set, but we haven't gone over the ledge yet. So, here's the solution. Here's the answer. Here's what we're building to. First of all, I want to stop and I want to say hi to the children's church because I absolutely, look at this. Look in the back. Can you guys say hi to everybody? Do you guys realize the life that represents in our church? Can you guys say hi real quick? Okay, now pay attention. Here's the second thing. I hate my job. I need a new job. I always attract the wrong person. I just need to find the right person. I don't have enough money. I need more money. What's the answer? And God's saying, if you don't understand the problem, please, 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 please follow me. Stick with me. If you don't understand the problem, you will always over-trust the solution. Can I bring that back and say it one more time? That when you have trouble identifying what is the actual problem, you will put too much confidence in the solution. You will be hanging a gate on a dog kennel going, this is the one. This time it's going to be different. This is going to be the gate. This is going to be the boyfriend. This is going to be the girlfriend. This is going to be the job. This is going to be the opportunity. And everything will be different. And everything will change. And this time it's going to be different. And you put so much confidence in the wrong solution because you had the wrong problem. Overtrust. I almost think I could say that 1,000 times. But I think you're with me. I think you understand that if you don't identify the problem, you will struggle with overconfidence in the solution. And then what happens when your solution fails? What does that do to your peace? It starts all over again. Neither, he says, but as commander of the army of the Lord, I have now come. It says, then Joshua fell face down to the ground in reverence and asked, what message does the Lord have for his servant? See, all the stress, all the chaos, all the sleepless nights, all the problems, all the things, it says it's neither. But let me tell you who I am. And it says that Joshua had almost this sigh of relief that says, finally an adult, finally a grown-up. Tell me what I'm supposed to do. I'm done. I'm sick of thinking I got this on my own. The problems are too big. The issues are too severe. What? Tell me what to do. I remember when we had Jet. He was a little baby, and Dana flew down, and Lacey's mom flew down, and she was helping us kind of take care of everything, and she got ready to leave, and me and Lacey were like, you can't go. We're not ready. Like, for the sake of the life of my child, quit your job, move in forever. So what do I do? So neither. It's neither. The reason it's neither is because God says, I'm so tired of you being destroyed by your problems. I'm so tired of your circumstances having so much control over you. I'm so tired of the tyranny of urgency operating too heavily in your life, having too much control. And I'm also tired of the amount of confidence you put in the solutions. It's neither. It's neither. You thought you had a problem, and so then you thought you had a solution. I can't tell you how many times someone's peace gets restored and they leave the church. They get distracted and they walk away from God because they are placing so much confidence in a new gate on a kennel that's broken. So he says, okay, what do I do? What do I do? I acknowledge who you are. What do I do? Because we've got Jericho, we've got manna, we've got the promised land. Tell me. God says, listen, those were never your problems. Those were always my problems. Manna wasn't your solution. Manna was my solution. The food, Jericho, the promised land. This was never your problem. You have been carrying a stress that didn't belong to you. You've got all these things. Those were never the problem. The problem was that you were on a journey. And the issue that we have as people, the issue that you have as people, the issue that I have as a person, is that we get tempted into thinking we can do it better. We could run our lives better. We could control our lives better. We can manipulate life. We can manually get through it better on our own. And God's saying, that's the problem. That's the problem. So Joshua says, I'm done. I'm out. I'm so tired of trying to run this amount. What do I do? And what does God tell him? He says, take off your sandals, for the place where you are standing is holy. We got Jericho, we got manna, we got promised land, we got all these big things, we got all these things. What do I do? What do I do? And he said, I got a plan. Said, okay, what is it? He said, take your shoes off. That seems a little too simple. I think God would have us this morning. If we could just clean the slate, clear the slate, God would just say, take a little step of obedience. Take just a little step of obedience. Because if he would have started by walk around the city of Jericho till the walls fall down, he'd have gone, huh? We can't get there yet. Let's just start with a little act of obedience. Let's start by just opening our Bible. Let's start by acknowledging that God can run our lives better than we can. But let's do that in a small step. Let's take one little small step that takes us from complacent to active. Let's take one step down the road of this journey that says that God can run my life better than I can. Let's just take one little step. Because here's what I think this morning. Here's what I think. I think that when you take one little step, I think you're going to like it. I think as a church, when we can organize an opportunity for someone to watch a video online, you go, well, that doesn't seem very spiritual. Well, neither does taking shoes off. But you got to start somewhere. You got to start somewhere, because I believe when you begin to apply the Bible to your life, what you're going to find is that the problems you've been battling were never your problems, so therefore the solutions were never your solutions. Like your harebrained ideas of how you're going to solve your problem, I think sometimes is like you putting a new gate on a kennel. Have you ever thought that maybe it would be nice to have that talk with your friend that we all know, that said, sweetie, you don't always just have bad luck with guys. Sometimes you seek them out because you got this thing that you haven't ever dealt with. You got this self-esteem thing that you got to work on, because your self-esteem attracts you to people that make you feel better, but in not healthy ways. What about this one? Maybe you don't have a job issue. Maybe you're a little lazy. And maybe because you're lazy and you have a problem with authority, no matter what job you're in, it's always going to fall apart, because the problem is not your problem. Therefore, your solution cannot be your solution. It's not that you're always broke. It's that you don't take advantages of opportunities that you've got. And when other people do and they do well, then you think of them jealously, and you start to think that, well, my life is just cursed. Maybe the problem isn't the problem, so the solution isn't the solution. Maybe, just maybe, the Bible knows more about your life than you do. And if you would learn to apply it, life would begin to change. Quit fixing the gate. Let's go fix the problems. Where do I start? Take your shoes off. Find something little. Find one little area of obedience in your life that you can identify that goes, I can do better there. I'm not asking you to be a hypocrite and go pretend to be something that you're not. I'm saying identify those little areas in your life. The little small step, the smallest step that takes you from zero to active, zero to movement, zero to obedience, because it's an acknowledgement that says, hey, Jericho was never mine to solve. God had a plan for Jericho, and the same God that had a plan for Jericho has a plan for me. Where do I start? That is a problem that begins to take away the stress. That begins to restabilize. Right before you fall asleep and those issues come to mind, you can go, oh, not my problem. As I'm obedient, God will begin to clear it. God will begin to run my life through enough of a filter that what comes out on the other side is better than what went in. God's got better for me than I have for myself. Can I remind you that he invested his son into your life? He's got more invested into you than you do. Sometimes it just starts with those little things that seem insignificant that begin to grow. Let's pray. Lord, I think if we could grasp your role in our life, God, I think the problems would just start to melt away. I don't think the problems could withstand the reality of who you are and your desire for us and your love for us. But God, it doesn't start with sitting back listening and going, oh, that was a nice sermon. Oh, church was good today. I love the songs. God, it's those Joshua moments that says, tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. If my problem is not my problem and the solution is not the solution, tell me what to do. Give me a little step. Give me a small step. Give me something that I can accomplish that tells me I'm from zero to movement. Help me to acknowledge the fact that, God, you have better plans for my life and you can run my life better than I can. Lord, give us a vision for what could be. Lord, give us a vision for what could be. What could be? What could my life be? Where could I go? Where would you take me? What would be if I just believed that you could do a better job at this than me? Lord, your word says that if we will confess with our mouths and believe in our heart that your son Jesus died on a cross to save us and was raised 3 days later. God, we've talked about the salvation here. I think you made that step easy. I think you intentionally made that step easy so that we would have somewhere to start. God, if we're going to cross this big river, we got to find the closest rock to the bank. Whether we've been at this forever, whether we've been at this our whole lives, or whether we've now gotten started, God, we need to just identify the next step. Heads bowed and eyes closed real quick. I'm going to pray. And I'm going to ask if you would just pray with me. If you as a church, if you would just pray along with me. Dear Lord Jesus, thank you for loving me, for taking on my problems and giving me solutions. Thank you for the cross, for the resurrection. Lord, please forgive me. Show me the next step. Lord, you heard those that prayed this morning. Lord, I pray that you would give them a confidence that you're more invested in their life than they are. There's never going to come a moment where you're distracted or that you look away. Lord, there is nothing in living for you that we should fear. I mean, realistically, fear comes when we withdraw and try to run things on our own. God, help us to identify the next step, the little act of obedience, the little things in our lives that we could do to begin moving towards you in an act of obedience. We love you. Pray in Jesus' name. Amen.